Hello all, let's continue our discussion. Instead of explaining the job logic and mechanism, let's execute the job and see how it functions. Later I will explain you the mechanism of the job. I have already stored my SQL queries in GitHub. This job should pick each queries one by one and execute it on Snowflake. So this is the set of SQL queries which you can see. I have already stored this in GitHub location. You can come back here. So this is my repository Talend, and then you can see here test.sql. This is my SQL files. So these set of queries it should pick and it should execute it on the Snowflake. Now let's execute the job and see how it will behave. So while I'm trying to execute the job, I have these parameters, that is 1, enter 1 to do a fresh load, 0 to do a delta load, enter 1 to execute the queries. So basically if I want to execute those set of queries, first what I have to do is I have to load all those queries into a table. After loading all those queries into a table, I will be executing each query one by one. So in order to load all those queries to a table, I should set this parameter to 1 here. And if I want to, after loading the queries to the table, if I want to execute each query one by one, I have to set this parameter as 1. So let me set this both of these parameters as 1 and 1. And this here I need to specify the file which is having those set of queries. So test.sql is something which I have mentioned there in the GitHub. So I'm just mentioning the name of that file. So this is the database name and schema name and the name of the control table. So this is a table to which it will be loading all those SQL queries, and it is the respective database and schema. Okay, so now let's go ahead and click OK, and we'll see what will happen. You can see here, this is my control table. You can see all the queries got loaded into this table, right? Select star from dual. You can see only 5 queries got loaded into this table. So how many queries I have in GitHub? I have 10 queries. So it has already loaded 5 of those queries. I think it's already loaded 7 here. Yeah, you can see here it loaded all these queries, and it's also having one more thing, that is status. So this query is still not executed and this is start time and this is the end time of that respective query. Now it started to execute. You can see the Y flag. So this query got executed, and it will keep on executing the queries one by one. And one thing what you have to observe here is, here at the 6th query, purposefully the syntax is wrong. So select star from right. I have just skipped the F keyword here. So the job should fail saying some syntax error, right? So that's why purposefully I made this as kept it as a wrong syntax. So let's see what will happen when it reaches that query. Now it reached the 4th query and it executed this query, and the status is Y, and you can see the start time and end time of this respective query. It executed the 5th one, and here when it comes to here, it say that it started, but it will not update the status as Y. So if you observe the Talend job here, you can see it has failed. So the job will fail, saying syntax unexpected ROM. So saying the syntax error, the job has failed. So now, as per our expectation, how the job should behave, we have already placed our goals, right? So somewhere in between my job failed, I should be able to come and update my queries. Let me fix this part, right? And also say like during this fix and all, I also thought like, okay, I need to place one more query here. Say like I need to make it as a, instead of dual, I will just remove the D just to make sure the query is getting updated. There is a space in the last, I will just remove it. So I fixed my query, the 6th query I fixed it. Okay, and now when I re-trigger the job, I should be able to only execute from this point onwards. So that is the goal what I have said, what we have said, right? So this is the basic functionalities this job should provide. So let's commit the changes. We made 2 changes here, one is here and another one is we just fix the syntax. So now let's come back here, and then now I have to execute the job. So here what now the parameter what I should be using is, now it's a delta load. So I don't have to load all those queries once again. I just have to update those queries in my control table, and I have to execute the queries after doing those changes, right? So if I don't want to execute the queries after making that change, I can keep this flag as 0. Okay, so say like I don't want to execute, I just want to see whether the change I made in GitHub is reflecting or not. I can just keep this flag as 0. So let me execute it, keeping it 0 and 0. I will not be executing the query. I will just be checking whether the change I made in the GitHub is will be reflecting in the control table or not. So let's execute keeping it 0 and 0. So let's check the control table once again. We have to, so here you can see here this query got updated. It is now select star from dual. So the query got fixed. So it will not continue executing because we made the execution flag as 0. And also in the last query it should be making, we made one change, right? It should be making that change. Let's execute it. You can see here in the last query D got removed and it become UAL. So these kind of flags will be helpful for you when you are executing a very larger set of queries, right, with 50 queries or 25 queries. So before execution, if you want to just make sure that the changes what you made in the GitLab will be reflecting on the control table, you can keep that execution flag as 0 and you can execute the job and you can come and check in this control table whether the change you made is effective or not. So before making an execution, so now it is reflecting. Now let's go ahead and keep the execution flag as 1 and then execute the job. So now I am executing. So what I will do is I'm not doing a fresh load of queries into the table. So I'm making that flag as 0 and I want to execute from the point of failure. So I am keeping this flag as 1. Let me click on OK. So now it will start from this point of failure onwards. So here it is N. So it will take half a minute or something. So now let's execute the query once again. Now you can see now it already crossed. So select star from dual, it got executed already. All right, and yeah, it also executed this select star from UAL without any failure. Okay, and also we have captured the start time and end time. So in this way, these flags will be very helpful for us to control the job. And there is one more thing here. Let's try to execute. So in some cases before execution of this query, say like if you have 100 queries and you want to see how many queries are there which before you go for the execution, you can keep something like this. You can load all these queries and by keeping this execution flag as 0. So in that case, it will load all the queries to the control table and then you can just come and check, okay, I have 100 queries and in the GitHub you have 100 queries. So why I'm saying it, because so each query is separated by this semicolon. While during deployment of this set of queries, if you have missed any of the semicolon, you will be in the position to check if you have missed anything by looking at the control table. So like 100 queries are there in GitHub, and if you have missed anything, then you can easily check in the control table. So before you going for the execution, so if I keep it 1 and 0, what it will do is it will just load all those queries, and let's keep 1 and 0 and see what will happen. And one more thing what you have to observe here is, so every time I execute, if I keep 1 and 0, it will automatically come and truncate this table, because it's a fresh load of queries. See here, so the table got truncated. It won't execute the queries, it will just load all the queries one by one. Now it loaded all the queries, all the 10 queries, right? And the job got succeeded. So what we can understand is, so this job is satisfying our requirements. So if I click run here, so the flag 1 and 0, it will just load the queries to the control table and it won't execute. And if something fails in between, then I have to set this 0 and 1, then it will execute the query from the point of failure. So basically I need to go and fix the query, and from that point onwards it will start executing. And if I don't want to execute, I can just set the flag as 0. So 0 and 0, it will just it will not execute the queries, it will just load the queries. And the same way 1 and 0, it will just load, and it won't execute the queries. So setting these flags will be helpful when you are doing a development activity and before deploying this job. So once you are sure with all the queries execution, and after doing all the fix, you can set the flag as 1 and 1. So doing this, it will load the queries and it will start executing each query one by one. And also this code is independent of the SQL queries you are placing, right? In future, if you go and add a few queries in between, you can easily do that, right? Without making any changes to the Talend job, you can usually do that. Say like if I want to add few more queries here, making the queries from 10 to 12, I can easily do that. So if I come and commit here, yeah, it is done. So if I come and execute the job now with the flag 1 and 0, it will load all these queries. So one more thing what you have to observe here is, if you are setting this flag as 1, if you are loading the queries, it is a fresh load from GitHub to your control table. In that case, it will come and first truncate that control table. Okay. And also say like you take another scenario, say like if in future, if some other analyst comes and he creates one more set of queries, or as a developer you have another set of ELT queries which you need to execute in a sequential manner, and you just created one more file, create a new file, say like placing all these queries once again. Say like we just placed 6 queries, test2.sql. okay, you place a new set of queries saying test2.sql. so now if I come here, I just need to change the name of the file. So this is the set of queries which I am interested to execute, and let's say instead of giving this SQL control table, test2 execute CTL table. Okay, So now if I just hit OK, then what it will do is it will load all these queries. It will create a table by name test2.execute control table automatically, and then it will load all the queries into the queries of test2.sql into that control table, and then it will start executing. So we don't have to go and explicitly create that control table. So let's see that. So it will create in the demo public because that's where we asked to create that control table. Let's check it here. Right. Yeah. test2.sql control table, right? It created this table. See here. So now it loaded all these SQL queries into this test2 execute control table. So all the 6 queries, I had 6 queries, right? So it loaded all these 6 queries into this control table, and it will start executing all these queries one by one because I'm setting the execute flag as 1, and it will execute each query one by one. So this job will give us the freedom of it completely separates the logic what we are trying to execute, which is basically the set of SQL queries from the code. The code will remain always separate and generic, so it can be used by anyone who wants to execute a set of queries in a sequential manner, right? So in that way it will be helpful. Hope you got the mechanism of this job at a high level. So let's summarize our learning before we go to the next lecture. So before we go for summary, I forgot to show you one more thing, that is the ELT queries audit table, which records all the audit details of our execution of each of these queries, right? So you can observe here, it captured the respective query ID, and once we deploy it to run in Airflow job, we will also capture the respective Airflow job and Airflow task name. And you can see here the query text, the respective database, and how many rows produced, the schema name, the role which executed this respective queries, the set of queries, the warehouse what we have used, and you can also the status of success, how much time it took overall, the other columns like queued, whether it is queued or not, how much of the time it went in a queue state while executing from that particular warehouse. So those kind of details we are trying to capture here, and also the warehouse cost for these queries. Select star from DL, it doesn't it's not costed anything, it is null, and somewhere here you can see it is showing this cost. Maybe this is just to provision the warehouse, only you can see that cost, right? Yeah. So, and also the ETL TS when actually this audit entry got created. So this is also audit information also we are capturing in this audit table. So now let's go to the summary part. So while working with this job, knowing these flags is very important. So the flag 1, 0, it says load the queries to the control table but don't execute it. And next, flag 1, 1, load query and execute. So load the queries to the control table and start executing the queries one by one. And this option you will be using when you are deploying the job for your loads. And the flag 0, 1, execute from point of failure. If something fails in between during your development activity, or in case unluckily if job fails in the production, say like you have 100 queries and the job failed after executing the 89th query, then what you can do is you can set after fixing the query 89th query, you can set the flag 0 and 1 and you can execute this job. It will start executing from the point of failure. And also you can see the 0 and 0, update query in control table, don't execute. So at 89th query you fixed, and then you just want to make sure that the fix will get reflected in your control table. In that case, if you want to make it 100% sure, you can set the flag as 0 and 0, and you can run the job and you can see whether the change is reflecting the control table or not. So the option 1 and 1 is something which we will be using when we are deploying the job to run in our daily loads or in our weekly or bi-weekly, anything. And the other options 1 0 and 0 1 and 0 0 we will be using most probably when we are doing the development activity. So hope at a very high level you got the functionality and usefulness of this job. So in the next lecture, let's see how this job is built and what logic is used. So see you in the next lecture. Thank you.